This is the beginning of our fourth week, and we're over halfway through Tuesdays with Morrie. We're beginning with the chapter called The Professor, Part 2. This part, on page 110 and 111, when he talked about his time with mental patients, it reminded me of an article that we read in the DSM class called Being Sane in Insane Places. And he noticed that one woman would just lie in the middle of the floor and people would just walk around her and ignore her. He says what she mostly wanted, he learned, was the same thing many people want, someone to notice she was there. She also missed compassion, something that the staff ran out of quickly. And that still happens today. Sometimes working with difficult clients or patients, being with loved ones, friends, when it becomes difficult, we lose compassion often, all too soon. So if you do get a chance, and you haven't read it yet, that article, Being Sane in Insane Places, is a classic. It's a reminder that we need to continue our connection with clients and patients, no matter how severe their disorder or how difficult it is to work with them each day. Remain compassionate. In the italics, right before the 7th Tuesday, they begin to talk about the tribe and North American Arctic and things like that. But the note I wrote down is what do we believe? And it's a very individual thing, whether we belong to a community or not. Each of us has to find our own belief system. Being an atheist is a belief. Being agnostic is a belief. Being Hindu, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, whatever it might be, all of those are belief systems. I think it's difficult to find peace. I've talked with many clients who are searching for some belief, whether it's a belief in nothingness after we die or a belief in an afterlife. That searching is a very good thing. I think people search throughout their lives. But we should begin to develop some belief systems rather than a confusion. Like I said, it could be a belief in science. It could be a belief in anything you want. Whatever fits you. Your own personality. But it's something to explore. The 7th Tuesday. On 116 it says, unconditional love, unconditional attention. Most of us didn't get enough. He began to enjoy his dependency. It's like going back to being a child again. And I noticed that with my own parents as they became elderly and had different conditions. My mother had an aneurysm, and they grew more dependent, and they didn't like that. One sign of dependency was the inability to drive themselves, and that was a major loss of independence in our society. But if the people upon whom they depend are compassionate and empathic and loving, then it can become a very positive thing. Here's an interesting thing I found. On page 117 it said, I had gone from being proud to say my age because of all I had done so young to not bringing it up for fear I was getting too close to 40 and therefore professional oblivion. And that really hit home for me for a number of reasons. First of all, I started school young. I graduated high school a year early. I graduated undergrad in 3 years. And I was the youngest person in my master's degree by a number of years. And that was something my parents had always stressed, was pushing myself academically, and I wish I had taken more time. But that touched me mostly because in the margins I wrote, "Me too," at age 38, because I was coming up to the age 40 when I started reading this book. And on January 14th, I will be 48. So it's really interesting. I don't even think about this anymore. So it's really interesting. Don't even think about my age anymore. I wrote a lot on 118. It's very simple. As you grow, you learn more. If you stayed at 22, you'd always be as ignorant as you were at 22. Aging's not just decay, it's growth. It's more than the negative that you're going to die. It's also the positive that you understand you're going to die and that you live a better life because of it. How do you feel about aging and the different stages of your own human growth and development? And where are you in that? People always say, "Oh, if I were young again." You never hear people say, "Oh, I wish I was 65 or older." You know what that reflects? Unsatisfied lives, unfulfilled lives, lives that haven't found meaning. Because if you found meaning in life, you don't want to go back. You want to go forward. You want to see more, do more. Can't wait until 65. Then I wrote, if you didn't have another birthday, you would be dead. And that's okay. Just like I said, it's not about the time you have. It's about how you use that time. And on page 120, he really begins to talk about the seasons of one's life. Truth is, part of me is every age. I'm a 33-year-old. I'm a 5-year-old. I'm a 37-year-old. I'm a 55-year-old. I've been through all of those. And I know what it's like. I delight in being a child when it's appropriate to be a child. I delight in being a wise old man when it's appropriate to be a wise old man. Think of all I can be. I'm every age up to my own. And I like that. The 8th Tuesday. Page 125. You know how I always interpreted that? Let's see, he wrote, wherever I went in my life, I met people wanting to gobble up something new, gobble up a new car, gobble up a new piece of property, gobble up the latest toy. Then they wanted to tell you about it. Guess what I got? You know how I always interpreted that? These were people so hungry for love that they were accepting substitutes. And I find that in clients who don't feel fulfilled, and they seek fulfillment in something else or in someone else rather than in themselves, the people who they spend their lives with already. Discontentment and unfulfillment. Appreciating what they already have. It's what needs to happen. 126. And yet the house had changed so drastically. It had filled with love and teaching and communication. There's a big confusion in this country over what we want versus what we need. Sometimes in my classes I talk about my little theory about rationalized need versus want. One of the interesting things, I was talking with one of my professors when I was a master's student. I did her wedding ceremony. I was talking with her fiance, just he and I, and he said, you know, Grafton, the one thing that bothers me is that this person he was going to marry, my professor, he's like, she just doesn't need me. And that really bothered him. He wanted to be needed. And I said, I'd rather be wanted than needed. And he liked that. I like that too. Right after that chapter in italics, the quote from Gandhi, "Each night when I go to sleep, I die, and the next morning when I wake up, I am reborn." Next chapter, the 9th Tuesday, we talked about how love goes on. Can you imagine being unable to move your own head? I worked for 10 years with a camp with children, for children with disabilities in Wexford every summer. There were many children who could not move 90% of their body or more. And yet they went through dark times, but they also experienced joy and exhilaration and fulfillment in their lives. But can you imagine? I can't. But I did my best to empathize, but also just to work with them so that they not only had their needs met, but the focus was not on the disability. Yes, we accommodated so that they could participate, but we wanted them to participate in everything that a child at a normal camp could participate in, whether they were in a wheelchair or not. And that's what really made the difference, I think, in their summer camp experience. They want to come and do another show with me, Nightline, he said, but they say they want to wait. I wonder why. Until what? You're on your last breath? Maybe. Anyway, I'm not so far away. Don't say that. I'm sorry. Bugs me because you look out for me, he smiled. Mitch, maybe they are using me for a little drama. That's okay. Maybe I'm using them too. They help me get my message to millions of people. I couldn't do that without them. So, it's a compromise. If I worried about being forgotten after I died, well, I do think I will be. I've got so many people who have been involved with me in close, intimate ways. And love is how you stay alive, even after you're gone. So maybe he's saying, I think I will be remembered, not forgotten. I wrote, love is. I'm wondering, love is different for each of us. For me, love is, yes, being accepted at my best when I was younger and more handsome and more athletic, but also wherever I might be, if I'm stressed out or emotional or having a bad day or sick in bed, whatever it might be, that's love. Not only love at my best, but love at my worst. Unconditionally. I decided I want what I wanted on my tombstone. Normally in my face-to-face grief and loss class, one of the exercises that I write, that I ask my students to write about is, I ask them to write their own obituary. They have to write part of it. It could all be about their life up until this point. And if they want, they can also add a part on about the life they have not yet lived. But it has to be about their life up to this point. I also ask them, what would you write on your tombstone? So I think that's part of what we might do in our discussion board this week. I like that idea. So it's not only about what you would write, but about reading what you wrote and thinking about it. How are you feeling about that? What would I write on my tombstone? Thanks. When Morrie was with you, he was really with you. He was present. I believe in being fully present. That means you should be with the person you're with. When we talk about mindful acts, being present for one another. So he's hitting on all these meaningful life concepts. There's a paragraph on page 136 in the middle. So many people with far smaller problems are so self-absorbed, their eyes glaze over, already have something else in mind. They only snap back to full attention when you finish talking. Might say, uh-huh, or yeah, really. This is a thing with, how does this apply to counselors? I think it's really important. If I was really tired or something, I would catch myself. My mind was wandering. I wasn't present. And no matter what, whether I'm having a bad day or a great day or whatever's happened before my session or after my session, it's so important to be present. The next page, 137. I'd raise my hand as if I was going to make a negative gesture, and then I would wave and smile. Instead of giving them the finger, you would let them go and you smile. Try to do this. Let's see. He's talking about when he's running. Agendas. Where do you live? So what do you do? Where do you live? But really listening to people without trying to sell them something. Pick them up, recruit them, or get some kind of status in return. How often do we get this anymore? So talking with another individual without any hidden agenda. That's really important. Just paging through looking for my next note. The 10th Tuesday, 1:45. We laughed and Morrie laughed too, as hard as he could, with his limited breathing. It's the first time in weeks that I could recall him telling a story like this. How strange, I thought, that he nearly fainted once from watching someone else's illness. Now he was able to endure his own. And on page 147, permanence, commitment, vows. Having waited 7 years before I proposed to Janine, I wondered if people my age were being more careful than those who came before us. They're simply more selfish. Sometimes in my classes I talk about not only need versus want, but how the aspect of our society that has become disposable, the short lifetime of material items, or trying to feel some type of fulfillment as a result of those material items that only last a limited amount of time. Like a cell phone, a 2-year lifespan. Does that relate to our concept of permanence in relationships? Or our commitment to things? Does it change our mindset that perhaps things are more disposable? Not only material goods, but relationships. I hope it doesn't. Page 148. They don't know who they are themselves. How can they know who they are marrying? So, talking about relationships here and marriage, and I've learned this much about marriage, he said now. You get tested, you find out who you are, who the other person is, how you accommodate or don't. Respecting another person. Believing in the importance of a relationship adds to that relationship. Life is about relationship and the importance we give those relationships. Okay. Can't we wait to read your obituaries. and your responses to this week's readings.